Hello, everyone. Jordan here once again. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. I just want to remind you, if you like this show, please go and give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. That really helps us out. You can also share the show. That's great too. And if you want to become a supporting listener, go ahead to patreon.com/starlores. You can support us with Bitcoin as well. Any of the other links to our social media, find us, message us. You can find that all in the description of this episode. All right, this is going to be a good one. Skylar and I go over the enigmatic, the wild, crazy story of Jack Parsons.
You think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it. Molded by it.
For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, against flesh and blood, against flesh.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
But against principalities, against powers, against powers.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality.
And against the rulers of the darkness of this age, the darkness of this age, the darkness of this age.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
January 4, 1946, at 9 p.m., Pasadena, California. In the converted garage of a sprawling craftsman mansion on Millionaire's Row, Jack Parsons stood before an altar draped in green and gold cloth, his hands trembling slightly as he raised the consecrated air dagger above the virgin parchment of an Enochian tablet. The haunting strains of Prokofiev's second violin concerto filled the ritual space as the rocket scientist, who by day calculated trajectories that would one day carry humanity to the moon, began an invocation that he believed would literally bring a goddess to Earth. Behind him, L. Ron Hubbard, yes, that L. Ron Hubbard of Scientology fame, sat in ceremonial robes, pen poised over parchment, ready to record whatever communications might emerge from the ritual space. For 11 consecutive nights, these two strange minds would attempt what their predecessors John Dee and Edward Kelley had attempted centuries before: the successful manifestation of divine beings in the material world. What followed defied the rational frameworks that both men had previously inhabited. On January 10th, during one of Parsons' increasingly intense Enochian elemental invocations, witnesses throughout the house reported 9 thunderous knocks that seemed to emerge from the very walls themselves. A table lamp was hurled to the floor by an unseen force, its crash punctuating Parsons' increasingly frenzied invocations. 4 nights later, on January 14th, the electrical system throughout the mansion failed simultaneously as a brownish-yellow light, roughly 7 feet in height, materialized in the kitchen. Hubbard himself claimed to have been struck by an invisible presence, stumbling backwards as the temperature in the ritual space plummeted without explanation. By January 18th, when Parsons conducted the final elemental invocation alone in the Mojave Desert at sunset, something fundamental had shifted in the fabric of their reality. Upon returning to the parsonage that evening, Parsons discovered a red-haired woman waiting in his living room. Marjorie Cameron, a 23-year-old artist and former Navy volunteer medical officer who had arrived as if summoned by forces beyond her comprehension. To Parsons, her sudden appearance was nothing short of a miraculous confirmation that his ritual had succeeded. The elemental mate he had sought through 11 nights of ceremonial magic had manifested exactly as the ancient texts promised she would. But Cameron's arrival marked not the conclusion of the Babalon Working, but merely the end of its first phase. What Parsons truly sought was far more ambitious than summoning a magical partner. He intended to incarnate the Thelemic goddess Babalon herself, the divine feminine principle that Aleister Crowley believed would usher in a new age of human consciousness. Through February and into March, the trio engaged in the most controversial phase of their occult operation, sex magic rituals designed to create what Crowley termed a moonchild, a being born of divine conception who would serve as the earthly vessel for Babylon's cosmic consciousness. Night after night, Cameron served as Parsons' quote-unquote Scarlet Woman, and Hubbard continued his role as magical scribe. They believed they were participating in nothing less than the birth of a new Messiah. The ritual reached its climax on February 28th, when Parsons, alone in the Mojave Desert, claimed to receive a direct communication from Babalon herself. In a state of supernaturally dictated writing that lasted hours, he transcribed what he believed to be Liber 49, a fourth chapter of Crowley's sacred Book of the Law. The text began with words that would have been blasphemous to most, but represented the culmination of Parsons' deepest spiritual aspirations.
Yea, it is I, Babalon, and this is my book. That is the fourth chapter of the Book of the Law.
By March 3rd, 1946, when the final rituals concluded with elaborate altar preparations and the burning of consecrated talismans, Parsons was convinced that he had achieved the impossible. In his mind, Babalon had indeed incarnated on Earth through Cameron, and the new age foretold by Crowley's prophecies had begun. That two of the 20th century's most influential figures, one who helped launch humanity into space, the other who had found one of its most controversial new religions, had devoted months of their lives to an operation that most would dismiss as elaborate fantasy, speaks to the enduring power of the questions that drove them. Whether one views the Babalon Working as a genuine supernatural achievement, an elaborate psychological experiment, or an episode of shared delusion, it remains one of the most meticulously documented attempts in modern history to breach the boundaries between the material and spiritual worlds. And like so many of the stories we have explored in this series, it forces us to confront the uncomfortable possibility that the line between genius and madness, between scientific innovation and mystical revelation, may be far thinner than our rational minds would prefer to believe. For indeed, it was Parsons, the practitioner of Crowley-esque witchcraft, who also co-founded the Jet Propulsion Laboratory on Halloween in 1936, which I am sure wasn't intentional. Be that as it may, by sheer force of will, the man who performed quite poorly in academics throughout high school and dropped out of Stanford after 1 year would become one of the men to found NASA, formerly the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, And despite having no formal training in chemistry or engineering, he invented Galset 53, a rocket fuel, a fuel which is still used to this day, and without it, space travel might not even be possible. Not just the fuel either, but the JATO engine system, which is used in spaceflight and military applications. Modern rocketry and jet propulsion was due almost entirely to the intellectual fruits of Jack Parsons. One might ask how someone who was a tour de force in the material sciences could also be an esoteric mystic trying to talk to spirits. I understand the question, but it's steeped in a Western ontology which requires that we make distinct categories and subcategories for everything. The logic goes like this. If this is not that, then that cannot be this. Or, if a fish is not a bird, then a bird cannot be a fish. And, as it were with the renegade rocket scientist, if he is a naturalist, then he cannot be an occultist. But in fact, Parsons was neither, and didn't fit into those categories. What he was interested in pushing the boundaries of human limits. He wanted to leave Earth, both literally and metaphorically. And that was his driving motivation. As with many of the topics we have already discussed, the ones who pushed science and technology forth were rarely rote materialists. Parsons was no exception. In the 2005 biography titled Strange Angel, The Otherworldly Life of Rocket Scientist John Whiteside Parsons, the author George Pendle wrote this of the eccentric polymath. Quote, Parsons treated magic and rocketry as different sides of the same coin. Both had been disparaged, both derided as impossible. But because of this, both presented themselves as challenges to be conquered. Rocketry postulated that we should no longer see ourselves as creatures chained to the earth, but as beings capable of exploring the universe. Similarly, magic suggested that there were unseen metaphysical worlds that existed and could be explored with the right knowledge. Both rocketry and magic were rebellions against the very limits of human existence. In striving for one challenge, he could not help but strive for another. End quote. And it wasn't just outside observers who noticed this tendency either. Fellow rocket scientist and co-founder of JPL, Frank Molina, said this of Parsons in an interview. Quote, Jack was always pushing the envelope, both in his scientific work and in his personal life. He had a restless spirit, always seeking to go beyond what was known or accepted. End quote. For Parsons, the urge was identical whether he was launching rockets towards the stars or invoking spirits in his Pasadena laboratory. Both were attempts to breach the boundaries of the known world and glimpse what he believed was a more fundamental reality, one that was wilder, more immediate, and infinitely stranger than the physical realm we take for granted. In January 1939, Jack Parsons found himself standing in the doorway of an unassuming building on Winona Boulevard in Hollywood. Feeling both curiosity and trepidation, John and Frances Baxter, a brother and sister who had befriended Jack and his wife Helen, had invited them to witness something they called the Gnostic Mass, a ritual ceremony that promised to be unlike anything the young rocket scientist had ever experienced. The Gnostic Mass was Aleister Crowley's theatrical reimagining of the Christian Eucharist, but stripped of its guilt and transformed into a celebration of divine sexuality and cosmic consciousness. Where the Catholic Mass spoke of sin and redemption, Crowley's version proclaimed the divinity of human nature itself. The ceremony featured a priestess who emerged from a coffin draped in a diaphanous gauze, performing what were described as, quote, painstakingly blasphemous rites, designed to shock conventional sensibilities and awaken participants to their own divine potential. As Parsons watched the ritual unfold, he was surrounded by an eclectic congregation that included Hollywood actor John Carradine and gay rights activist Harry Hay. This was a community of outcasts and visionaries, artists and intellectuals who had rejected the moral constraints of mainstream society in favor of something far more dangerous and alluring. By this point, Parsons had already encountered the name Aleister Crowley through a peculiar book called Nox Om Pax that he discovered at a used car dealership in Pasadena. The text, with its strange blend of Eastern mysticism and Western ceremonial magic, had intrigued him in ways he couldn't quite articulate. Now witnessing Crowley's philosophy enacted in flesh and blood, he felt both repulsion and attraction, a tension that would come to define his relationship with Thelema itself. What Parsons couldn't have known that night was that he was witnessing the American manifestation of a spiritual revolution that had begun 35 years earlier in a hotel room in Cairo when a young English occultist claimed to have received a new law for humanity from a supernatural entity named Iwas. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. For a man who spent his days defying gravity and his nights reading science fiction, the promise of a philosophy that encouraged the transcendence of all limitations must have seemed like destiny itself.
Now, Hubbard and Parsons were close, weren't they?
At first, yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, just tell me about the black magic things that used to go on. I think it was on a Friday, wasn't it? Tell me about the meetings and the sort of things you used to see.
Well, I didn't go to any of them, but this was an Aleister Crowley group that Parsons was, and they were semi-metaphysical, and they had some pyramids that were sort of the center of theirs. The ceremony requires the presence of virgins and stuff like that, but I don't know how close they ever came to that. At any rate, there was some particular gospel attached to that. I did peek in on them once or twice, and they were sitting there discussing some metaphysical, but I never really wanted to know too much about it.
Did they used to wear robes?
Oh, yes. Well, the leaders did.
Just describe the picture that you used
to
see.
They wore just the straight dunce's cap, I call them, the pyramid hat, and that the leaders did. And they had various colors, I guess, indicating how high in rank they were and all that sort of thing. I never really got very close or even asked about it. I wasn't that interested. But, of course, Hubbard saw it as a great way to get into what Crowley had and what Parsons had.
So he was part of all that group?
Oh, for a while, yeah. I don't know how long he stayed in it, but he hung around for a while, probably just to find out what was going on. I don't know.
So just tell me about what used to happen with the Crowley people at the house and Hubbard's involvement.
Well, they had these big meetings. There weren't too many of them, but they had 2 pyramids on each, and they had hold all their ceremonies inside that, and they would have incantations, that sort of thing. And of course, there was some requirement in there, which I'm not familiar with. It's the presence of a virgin at the meetings. Now, whether her state of dress or what, I didn't know, but I was told that it was generally nude or something.
Okay. Now, just to sum up, did you like Hubbard? Tell me what you thought.
No, I didn't like him almost from the first, but I was fascinated by him because he had so many stories to tell, and he was so charming, but I never believed a word of him. And in contrast to most of the people there who just accepted him as a saint almost.
So we've briefly discussed the Babalon workings and some of the high strangeness that occurred, but that wasn't even half of it. There's a lot more than I could even fit in this episode. But just like one other example here I wanted to bring up was one night during the workings, he was able to summon screaming banshees flying at the house windows. This apparently traumatized his best friend and science partner, Edward Foreman, for the rest of his life. And I believe even after this event, Edward Foreman sort of started to distance himself from the parsonage and Jack Parsons.
I wonder what they mean exactly by flying banshees. Like, what exactly does that mean?
I mean, yeah, like the image that is conjured in my mind is, I guess what I've seen in Banshee video games.
Yeah,
like
sure. I think of Van Helsing, the movie, like the flying vampiric. I think they're called harpies in that, but that's what I think when I hear flying banshee. Like, interesting, very strange.
I mean, who knows what this was all about? Again, it's so strange with a lot of the topics that we discuss here. It's hard to verify, but at the same time, there's no obvious motive to hoax this. I guess.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. And like Edward Foreman was like pretty scarred by this event. So I don't know. Take with that what you will. Another. I did sort of mention this in the script, but there was this light entity that appeared in the kitchen and struck Hubbard on his arm, apparently paralyzing it for the whole day. Now,
that was the light, the 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
Light. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It like paralyzed Hubbard.
See, when you were going through that, I pictured more of like an orb.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was more of an entity.
Well, could have been an orb.
It could have been
a light entity.
Yeah.
Like it could have just, who knows how it struck his arm. If
Interesting.
It struck. And now I will want to caveat this. If there is one bullshit artist in this whole story, it is absolutely L. Ron Hubbard.
That is true. That is very true.
But more on Hubbard later.
Yeah.
But we'll get into just a few interesting details here. So the Agape Lodge, which was founded by Crowley and later led by Parsons, was essentially like any cult you read about in pop culture, like Branch Davidians, the Mansons, Rajneeshis, etc., especially in the throwing off of sexual mores. Originally, it was in Hollywood, but in 1942, it relocated to Pasadena, where the Babalon Workings took place. And this was affectionately called the Parsonage.
The Parsonage, yeah, right. The famous Parsonage.
Yeah. This is kind of where now, if you read a little bit into what was going on at the Parsonage, it was a sex cult.
Yeah.
That's really what
they always break down into that. Like 99% of the time, we're sex cultists.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
And man, there is like this constant theme. Well, I mean, of course it's going to come up with someone like Aleister Crowley and sex magic, which was kind of one of his go-to rituals.
Yeah.
But like there's, I don't know what it is, and maybe like you can opine on this, but there seems to be something about like engaging in degenerate, degrading sexual behavior that almost like opens people up to these sort of supernatural experiences. And I wonder if it's like, if it's to like sort of destroy your ego, because I know that's in a lot of like people who do like meditation or do orb summoning, that I've read about a lot about this, is to like sort of like dissolve the ego.
Right.
And I wonder if like sex magic, really what it is a way to like completely humiliate and destroy you.
Yeah.
So that like your ego is completely dissolved.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like ego works as a shield for your consciousness almost. Yeah. No, I don't really have too much to say about that. It's just, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
There's something to be said too for like, if you want to brainwash someone, the best way to do it is through trauma. So you torture them and then you can program them and make them anything you want.
Yeah,
if you do that,
and it's
right?
a great way to like destroy your sense of self
Yep.
and your sense of identity. And actually, often what happens to people who are deeply traumatized is they sort of disassociate,
Right.
and they almost like, some of them have even reported like something like an out of body experience where
Yes.
that like they're no longer in their body, right? And this could just be some kind of psychological coping mechanism. I don't know. But I wonder if like these sex magic rituals are a way to like get your consciousness so out of your body,
Stepped aside, so something else can come in.
so
For
that
sure.
you can engage in this sort of like magic or these entities that you think are going to give you power or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's I mean, going back to Crowley, I'll briefly mention this too, is if you read about you'll have to remind me, who's Crowley's original like partner protege that went with him.
Oh God, I don't remember now.
Can't remember his name, but the guy, like I'm just gonna say it outright. He raped this guy,
Right.
in their rituals to summon
Right.
a demon,
Right.
what can only be described as a demon, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, like they engage in really like debaucherous, disgusting acts that even his protege didn't want to talk about after the case.
Just absolutely. Just he was probably the wickedest man alive at the time.
Yeah. and you know what? I don't even think that Crowley was gay necessarily.
Yeah, maybe not.
I honestly don't think he had those inclinations. I think to him it was just about just violating as many taboos as you can.
Right.
And there is some evidence even that Crowley had talked about child sacrifice, and maybe people who had been followers of him had engaged
Actually did it. Yeah.
Now
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. It's hard to find like strong sources on that. But it's just like a thing to think about in all of these cults, ritual magic, what they're actually engaging in, and how they're sort of piercing the veil to speak with these entities,
right,
to give them knowledge.
Yeah. No, it's strange. I also I've kind of noticed something as we come more and more into the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like this kind of contact, and even if if it is entities actually giving these people some of these technological advancements, it seems like
which by the way, Parsons believed he was getting
inspiration
from these entities.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like you actually have to do a lot less work than an older culture would have had to do as far as their workings.
Like in their ritual magic.
Yeah, in their ritual. Because
why?
Just because, like Parsons and Hubbard, I mean, they did the working for like a few months. It says, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it was pretty intense and stuff. But there's some rituals in some older cultures where shamans and witch doctors, they do rituals that last years, and it involves like a lot more than just sex magic too.
Like
there's
cannibalism.
There's like a lot of hoops they had to jump through, and it doesn't. To me, it seems like it's almost getting easier, which is strange. I don't know. That just occurred to me. It's just it's not as intense.
Yeah, that is interesting.
As what an older culture would have.
And it's also strange because of the scientific materialist mind which we exist in, which is very allergic to that to anything magic.
Right.
And I almost wonder if that is whoever these entities are, if they sort of liked that like the Enlightenment was able to mask or hide under the rug the magical world, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
And that everyone became a rationalist, right?
Right.
And they became a materialist, and they thought less and less about these magical topics. And I will say, even religious people fall strong. Modern religious people are very much products of the Enlightenment, and it's just a fact. Like the average Christian evangelical church, say you might attend, is going to have very little talk of anything supernatural.
Right.
It's going to be like a rock concert and a TED talk.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like self-help, and that's kind of the flavor that you're going to get. It's going to be very anti-supernatural, and they're not necessarily doing it intentionally, but they're just a product of their culture. Right. And that's how they're like expressing their faith. But like, I mean, if you talk about the Christian faith, which you and I are adherents of, we're talking about something that claims bodily resurrection, virgin births, parting of oceans, supernatural entities, armies of supernatural beings in skies.
Yep, it's
very bizarre.
All supernatural, basically.
It's a deeply magical world, if you will. And it's funny, we have to write things like Harry Potter or something to recreate those magical worlds. But anyways, I digress. This is like a long, just sort of. It's just something to think about, the milieu in which Parsons exists in, especially at the age of the atomic bomb is about to come out in a couple of years after this.
Right.
We're going to start getting space flight, and it's just like science
explodes.
Yeah. But also science becomes like godlike.
Yes.
Especially after World War II, like scientific materialism is just the god that everyone worships. Science will solve all problems. The scientific method and technology is going to bring humanity into a utopia. Yet you still have these weird little side trails that if you aren't looking close enough, you're going to miss, right? And that exists alongside and in the same river as science simultaneously, but is always for some reason being obscured by the culture, right? Like the culture has a way of covering up the magical elements that we see in science itself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so. It's a wild world, that's for sure.
Yep. Yes. So Parsons also has this open affair with his wife, Helen's sister, Sarah Northrop. So his wife Helen, her sister, comes to live at the parsonage, and he has an affair with her. And
this guy is just unbelievable.
He cucks out his wife Helen to L. Ron Hubbard,
right? Which doesn't end up well for him.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's just as funny. Like no one, I think, can objectively look at this and think like this isn't going to turn into like a completely toxic environment. But
just hilarious.
Yeah. But anyways,
these people always self-destruct too. You notice that?
Oh yeah.
100% of the time,
and
self-destruct.
It's almost always like a deal with the devil, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll get great success, you'll be remembered forever, and you will die in misery and probably poverty as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the deal.
It's just like John Dee and Edward Kelley.
Yep.
I mean, maybe not so much Aleister Crowley, but it is a pretty common occurrance. So again, in sort of this whole series, as we're talking about sort of magic and science, did Parsons get his knowledge of technology from the spirits he communed with? He would regularly chant Aleister Crowley's Hymn to Pan before every rocket launch. our rocket test launch.
Oof.
So he said it like a prayer. It was a ritual
Right.
that he would engage in when he was doing his rocket launches.
Right. And from what we know, from some recent revelations, from people like Diana Pasolka and others, NASA does everything ritualistically. They have people stand in certain places at certain times during launches. They name their launches very specific things. They name their hardware very specific things. They launch at very specific times and dates due to numerology and other things.
Yep.
So that doesn't surprise me at all. It's quite fitting for one of the founders.
Yeah, the precursor.
To be doing this.
But like, again, this goes along with our theme, like special hidden knowledge coming from spirit beings and developing real world technology from that.
If I do remember correctly from that interview, I remember the reason she was given for why they do that is because we don't want to upset our benefactors.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, I think, isn't that what Tim Taylor said?
Yeah. Tim Taylor told her that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. It's a very, very interesting.
So obviously these rational materialists aren't so rational and aren't so material.
Well, I know. And everything, anytime you read a sort of like press release from these people or listen to them in interviews, you would just think they just think the world is only made of stuff and there's nothing else beyond that. And then don't worry your pretty little head about all our weird, creepy stuff that we do, which they absolutely do.
Yeah, 100%.
They are engaged in this, and there's a lot of good sources that have said as much and given evidence for this. NASA is strange. I know, like the Soviet space program also did a lot of weird stuff too.
They all did.
Yeah. It's
NASA now is more of a money laundering operation, I think, than anything. I think there's so much money that just disappears in there, and they just say
it's just a black hole.
Yeah,
like a lot of programs.
Yeah, but it's crazy.
Yeah, but
maybe they're funding occult rituals.
Well,
Who knows?
Honestly, it wouldn't even be all that. It's just the irony is so rich and deep.
yes.
With just like because most people don't know the history of NASA
Right.
and its founding with the Jet Propulsion.
Yeah, so
Laboratory.
we sound like crazy people talking about this, but if you just look into it just a little bit, you can find all the same information we found, and it's well known. It's out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it is also funny to me that like NASA, like very highly esteemed academics and highly credentialed people, blah blah blah. Yet their founder was this like kind of loose cannon, open marriage, lived in a cult.
Yeah, occultist.
Occultist who like wasn't even a college graduate, wasn't even good at school at all. Like
just really good at blowing stuff up.
Just making rockets. But it's funny, these veneers that these organizations put to the public, and then when you kind of like peel back the curtain a little bit, it's not exactly how they're presenting
I think we've mentioned it in other conversations, but like it can't be understated how the separation between a real genius and also a real psycho or just absolutely crazy person it's that wall is very thin when you start to get to the upper echelon of intellect, and that's really what NASA deals in, right?
Yeah.
So if you take that into account, it wouldn't be that outside the pale to find out that maybe they're all in a cult, maybe they're all doing ritual work, like they're fully all in. We don't know. We'll probably never know, but I mean, it just wouldn't surprise me because just seems like that's par for the course with extremely, extremely intelligent people. They also have a lot of strange beliefs and are will go into the occult. They stay away from typical organized religions, it would seem. and go into more cult like, or just invent their own, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it is
not all, but lots of them do.
It is a common thing that like highly competent individuals, very ambitious individuals, are into the weirdest thing, weird sexual appetites, often into occult stuff. Yeah. Not always, but often. Have just like very strange and bizarre lifestyles that, like, to us. And they're often like very, very wealthy, those people. Not all, like Jack Parsons wasn't super wealthy, but often these eccentric, highly competent people become very wealthy, and they're just very strange people. Yeah. like you and I would not be able to relate to these people. Like we couldn't go and like have a beer with them. Like you would have nothing. You do like I think we do not understand these people, and they don't understand us. Like we're aliens to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And who maybe they're possessed by aliens. So. I don't know. But yeah, so Parsons' book, Liber, is it Liber or Liber? Liber 49, which he claimed was channeled to him by a spirit and was the fourth chapter in Crowley's Book of the Law. I mean, he made it. I don't know if Crowley ever accepted that. It was the fourth chapter, but he made it that. I kind of skimmed through it, and it really was just a flurry of esoteric nonsense and a smattering of like subversive, antisocial, postmodern philosophy.
Yeah, I listened to it, and it was just nonsense.
Yeah.
It's even worse hearing it than it is reading it. Yeah. It's just like
it's a lot of these books though. It just, even Aleister Crowley, I read their writings, and it just sounds like gobbledygook.
Yeah, I agree.
It really just sounds like nonsense. And honestly, if you read a lot of academia, like especially like postmodernist critical theory type academia,
it's the exact same.
It's just like you can't even understand what they're saying. It's just like complete.
Doesn't make any sense.
It's just like complete stream of consciousness. It almost sounds like.
Almost like they're possessed.
Yeah, like they're channeling something in their writing. I don't know. It is. And this was, I mean, I guess postmodernism was probably just starting to become a thing around this time. But, Derrida and stuff, I think they came out in the 50s and the 60s. But there's a lot of like parallels with that as well. Postmodernism, critical theory, and occultism, Gnosticism, and the sort of magical thinking, if you will, of all that. But anyways, we just like with the whole life of Jack Parsons, we sort of see the continued influence and impact of Aleister Crowley, and by extension John Dee, who we also discussed,
our boy John Dee,
in previous episodes. And I did want to say one thing before we jump into our next section here. John Maynard Keynes said that Isaac Newton was the last of the magicians.
Right.
And he was very wrong about that. Isaac Newton was not the last of the magicians.
True.
There were many magicians to come after him, and that included Jack Parsons. But not just Jack Parsons. L. Ron Hubbard himself was also a magician in his own right. And the religion which he founded, Scientology, just reeks of esotericism, occultism,
and also a healthy smattering of just nonsense, self-help, gobbledygook.
But a lot of self-help comes from this occultism,
right?
Like this, like do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. Like elevate yourself, manifest your destiny.
Right.
This is self-help. This is like a lot of where self-help
100%. Yep.
The philosophy of it, but they just secularize the language, if you will. Let's jump into this this fool.
It's gonna be
L. Ron Hubbard.
It's going to be hilarious and fun.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode. You'll have to wait till next week to catch the rest of it. But thank you so much for listening again. We love it when you leave 5-star rating and reviews. That really helps us out. If you want to support us or reach out to us in any other way, please go down to the link in the description of this episode, and you can find all the good stuff there. Thanks again. We hope you stay tuned for next week as we jump into L. Ron Hubbard.